right, we spent all week telling you exactly what the keys are going to be for Ole Miss Saturday. Now we're going to tell you why we think Ole Miss is going to win the game. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis. You can follow me down below at the Stephen Willis, and thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. So sign up to UnderdogFantasy.com with promo code LOCKEDON, 2 words, Locked On, and get your deposit doubled up to $100. That's pretty cool indeed. All right. So we've gone over different keys over the last 4 days of why, what Ole Miss has to do, what LSU is going to try and do. We looked at this game from just about every angle that you can look at this game. Now, I'm going to tell you now why you probably shouldn't overly worry. We're going to talk about places that the Ole Miss football team has definite advantages. And if they go out and perform at their normal level, they should win this game fairly easily. Now, first of all, we will say that LSU is not going to stop this run team. They're just not. This run game is far too advanced for LSU, I think. And it's not because LSU is bad. It's just because Ole Miss is committed to it. I mean, it's one of those things where everybody wants to run the ball. Everybody wants to be powerful at it. But the first time the shiny new object, which is the passing game, becomes an available option, you take it. Ole Miss doesn't do that. There's some games where they're nearly 80% run this season. And with Zach Evans and Quinshon Judkins, that's exactly what you should do. The tight end that went down was not the run-blocking tight end. Chad Kelly is the better of the two blockers at tight end. That allows you to continue running your base offense and do what you need to do, and everybody's in the position to which they're familiar. So LSU is going to sell out to try and stop this run game, though. They're at least going to try and slow it down because they realize that if Ole Miss runs for 448 yards, this game is over. I mean, even before it kicks off, this thing's over. If you told Lane Kiffin, hey, you're going to run for 440 yards against LSU Saturday, and Lane Kiffin's like, W. Yeah, period. There's no way they can score with us if we put up that amount of rushing yards in modern football. It is so demoralizing to see the other team doing that. And I think Ole Miss is going to set out to run the inside zone and do things with Quinshon Judkins. They're going to do things scheme-wise that maybe LSU hasn't seen with Zach Evans. They're going to use the quarterback in the run game in a certain way to show them a look. And LSU is going to have to commit more and more to stop the run. But that's not the reason Ole Miss is going to win this game. It's what happens after LSU has to sell out to stop the run. One-on-ones on the outside with Malik Heath, Jordan Watkins, and Jonathan Mingo. Jaxson Dart throwing the football in one-on-one coverage. I think you're going to see some zero looks Saturday, honestly, just to stop Ole Miss's run game, because Ole Miss is not afraid to run against a 7-man box. They're not afraid to run against an 8-man box. They are, we do what we do, stop us. That's the way Ole Miss's attitude towards the opposing team is offensively. And in the run game this year, they are developing a mentality doing that. It's really fun to see. And Ole Miss has been an offense for the better part of the last 10 years, ever since Hugh Freeze, being very quarterback dominant. Ole Miss, how it performed on the football field when Hugh Freeze was there, depending on how Bo Wallace played, depended on how Chad Kelly played, depending on how Shea Patterson played, Jordan Ta'amu, etc. There was one year when Rich Rod was the offensive coordinator and John Rice Plumlee was running all over people and doing crazy things. But Every other year, this has been a very quarterback-centric offense. I think you can argue, honestly, that this was a quarterback-centric offense when Rich Rod was calling the shots. But it was a different type of quarterback-centric. This offense right now is not. Ole Miss has a very, very talented quarterback. And we've talked all year about him flashing here, doing what he needs to do. He's actually won a game. He's done all the things building up that you would hope he would before he got into this cauldron in Tiger Stadium, before he walked into College Station. He needed to be at a decent position. So far, he's got 2 100-yard games. He's got a 448-yard passing day. I think he's ready to go. And when LSU creeps up to the line of scrimmage to do the things that they're going to have to do to try and contain Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans and Jaxson Dart on the run, the pass game is going to open up. I think some explosives can open up. What you potentially are going to see is a ton of at least man-free looks. You're going to have an opportunity to run double moves on the outside if you can block LSU's front, which LSU's defensive front, they were coached by Ed Orgeron. We all remember 2008. A front coached by Ed Orgeron can play. He can recruit defensive linemen. He does that very well. So we will see how they use that. But if you get a man situation against this defense and they can see it coming, they're going to call shot plays. There's a chance for 2 or 3 big plays to happen in this game by Ole Miss. And it's all going to be because they are so scared to death of Zach Evans and Quinshon Judkins that Jonathan Mingo and Malik Heath and Jordan Watkins, they're all going to be available to play. And I think that is why Ole Miss will win the game Saturday. Another thing to look at, Harold Perkins, the linebacker at LSU. Really good player, true freshman. True freshman, though, that can be got. He did not play much against Florida because they were so RPO-centric, and he was having trouble with that. That tells me the middle of the field could be open for Ole Miss this week. So look out for Jordan Watkins and look out for Jaxson Dart over the middle, developing a little bit of rapport throwing RPOs. Just a gut feeling. I know they're going to do stuff on the outside because Jonathan Mingo is just a man out there. Malik Heath, I mean, they're solid. But Jordan Watkins over the middle, he is the under-the-radar pick to click this weekend. Now, LSU, this is the best team Ole Miss has played. Honestly, not really close. This is probably the second best team they're going to play to finish out their schedule. That's the important part to realize. If Ole Miss can get a W in Tiger Stadium, not only are they continuing and they're 8-0 for the first time in my lifetime, they're going to College Station with a chance to win that. If they win both of those road games that were so hard, now they're going to be difficult. But if they win those, all of a sudden you're playing Bama for a chance to clinch the West. Think about that for a moment. The West is actually could be won that night. And you talk about Alabama potentially coming into a cauldron. There's so much to play for. The reason I say that is to say this. We are not used to in our lifetime. We have PTSD as Ole Miss fans sometimes. And we need to stop and smell the roses of exactly what's happening. There's people that has been bitching all season about a team that is 7-0. Why are they bitching all season? Well, it started at the beginning of the year. Well, you won't get away with this with an SEC team. Although you won't get away with that if it's an SEC team. And everything was based off a self-deprecating view of our own fans towards our own team. What they really meant by you won't get away with that with an SEC team is Alabama. All of this stuff they said is like, it was all directed at Alabama. And if you understand exactly the mindset there, which there's honestly nothing wrong with that. I think they should point to Alabama, but they need to be honest about it. They don't need to take a 42-0 Georgia Tech game and talk about random SEC teams by putting Alabama in there. Alabama's been a special generational team for 15 years. This isn't Vanderbilt. This isn't Auburn. It's like everybody's like, well, you got to play 4 quarters to beat an SEC team. Well, they've beaten 3. Now, this is our second hardest test. If Ole Miss can find a way to win this game, that sets up the mother of all trap games next week. But if they can win this game and get to 8-0, 4-0 in the SEC, man, so many doors are going to open up. You're talking about a team that's going to move up in the polls even more. Everything is on the table for this team. And this team, as I told you, Lane Kiffin has assembled the most talented team in my lifetime. And you can see that now. You can see what's going on. They know they're good. Now, I don't want them to think they're too good, but they do know they're good. And they don't freak out when the other team does well. Sometimes they have a tendency to get bored and fall asleep, but this is a good football team. And it will be tested at Tiger Stadium Saturday at 2:30 on CBS. LSU's a 2-point favorite in this game over number 7 Ole Miss. What is Tiger Stadium, like a 10-point home field advantage? I just don't know. The over-under is creeping up, by the way. This game feels like a 27-17, as I told you yesterday. It feels like that coming into this game. So I just don't know what's going to happen with the atmosphere and all that. I think Ole Miss is going to win because LSU has a side of the ball that they are scared of from Ole Miss. And they're going to have to sell out to stop that. If you heard Caroline Fenton last night talking on our Twitter space, she talked about how LSU has been struggling to stop the run on the outside. So expect outside zones, expect stuff like that, quarterback counters, all of that to get on the edge to where it's a one-on-one situation between Zach Evans or Quinshon Judkins or even Jaxson Dart and a defensive back. It's an advantage Ole Miss. LSU is going to have to creep up to stop the run as it goes. Whenever that happens, it'll be one-on-ones on the outside. I like our guys in one-on-one situations. I just do. Ole Miss usually plays well in Tiger Stadium. They might not win, but they play well. And sometimes they play their best when they have their worst teams. I think in 2010, the Jeremiah Masoli year, I mean, it was like almost a punt return, I think, or something from winning that game. When the year that David Cutcliffe got fired, they took Robert Lane at quarterback, almost upset LSU in Tiger Stadium. Historically, Ole Miss plays pretty well, but also historically, Ole Miss doesn't win this game very often. The last time they won was in 2008. The time before that, I think, was in 2001. Weird things happen in this game, and it always has. It's the LSU Tiger Stadium Ole Miss mystique. But it's a game that this time Ole Miss has the talent advantage. LSU has good players. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. But I think Ole Miss has better football players. And it's not often that Ole Miss has gone down to Tiger Stadium with a more talented football team. The Gatorade National Player of the Year, he suited up for LSU a couple of times. Well, for the first time, he's suiting up at Ole Miss at quarterback. Zach Evans, a former number 1 running back in the country. LSU's had that guy. Don't have him this year. Ole Miss has him. Quinshon Judkins, potentially the best freshman running back in the country. LSU doesn't have that guy. They normally do. They don't have that guy now. At wide receiver, there's so much more talent on the Ole Miss side. Over on LSU side, you got Malik Neighbors, Jack Besh, those guys. Good players, not the same level. So it is okay to go into this game confident. LSU is going to come out and give you everything that they have. But realize this. Trust your training and trust your talent. And if you do that, all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, this game could be an Ole Miss situation pulling away like 2008. Because occasionally Ole Miss does come into this game as the more talented team. But I will say this. I say that and I will say this. When Ole Miss is undefeated or in their glory days, like 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, that 5-year period, 2014, LSU has won like 5 out of 7 out of those games. So remember, there's a bugaboo that happens a little bit when it goes to playing in Tiger Stadium. There's voodoo that will happen, and you have to be very careful. But yeah, they've got some black magic down there, and maybe some voodoo queen or something is doing all their stuff in Louisiana. But either way, we have to overcome that. Good players, good people, but this rivalry is just so special when Ole Miss is good. So special when Ole Miss is good. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up your college football season. So this is what we want you to do. Go to the Underdog Fantasy app, sign up, or on UnderdogFantasy.com or the app Underdog Fantasy at the App Store or Google Play Store, and identify players that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be Ole Miss players. It could be any player. So you might look there and it's like, hey, Tyler Van Dyke is going to throw for higher than 240.5 yards. Will Mallory higher than 55.5 receiving yards. Caleb Smith higher than 67.5 receiving yards. So if you do that and you can get your players, 2 to 5 players at a time, you have a chance to make some cash. It's easy to play and available in over 30 states. Basically, like I said, pick 2 to 5 players across any team, not just Ole Miss, and decide whether or not they'll finish higher or lower. One of the easiest fantasy to play games out there, and you can win some cold hard cash in a single game. So sign up with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's one word, locked on. And Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app on the Google Play Store or the App Store. Sign up there. That's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Locked On. One word. Get in the college football pick'em action today. All right. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Participate in the comments and the conversations by leaving a comment and, of course, upvoting the video itself. And, of course, hit the bell for notifications whenever we release a new video, which happens quite frequently. Kara McCutcheon's back. How you doing, Kara?
Hi, happy to be back. Very excited. Always get excited for the Magnolia Bowl. This is, to me, I think LSU, I feel, is our second rival, but I grew up at Ole Miss, and I just remember the LSU games were always so big. I remember also my dad always told me wherever I went to college, it could not be Mississippi State, it could not be LSU. So those have always been to me the two I felt were our biggest rival games.
Yeah, it absolutely has. I've been a little bit amped up all week, and I've been doing my best to kind of curtail that. But this is the game that I most want to win out of all of Ole Miss's schedule. Like Mississippi State, I most not want to lose it. But this is the game I most want to win. And, I just did a thing about why I think Ole Miss is going to win the game Saturday. And a lot of times LSU is the more talented team, and Ole Miss is kind of the plucky upstarts, with the exception of like 2008. So it's weird that this year Ole Miss probably has the more talented team. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. We're starting to see a little bit of on LSU, Jayden Daniels and Boutte's kind of connection going stronger, and it's starting to work a little bit more, and they're getting comfortable. But I think in general, if you watch the way our offense is shaping up, I know we didn't have a lot of the pass against Auburn, but in general, we have a lot of talent with Mingo. We have a lot of talent with Malik Keith. We have a lot of talent, obviously, on the ground. So I think our offense is shaping up really nicely, and I think we have a lot of talent there. Also, on our defense, we see a lot of those guys on the line really stepping up. I think Ivy and Coleman lead right now, I think, in tackles, or they're second in tackles, I think, right now on averaging, or sacks, getting in there. So I think we do have a lot of talent on our end. So I think we have a good matchup with LSU and probably have a little more of the talent on our side.
Yeah, I think so. And if I'm not mistaken, you're going to the game this weekend, right?
Yes, I will be in Baton Rouge. I am going to the game.
How many Ole Miss LSU games in Tiger Stadiums have you seen?
So I've been to Baton Rouge a couple times, but this is actually my first time to actually go to the game. So.
Okay. Tiger Stadium is great. It's so much fun to watch an Ole Miss LSU game in that environment. The first one I actually saw was, believe it or not, 1996. I think Ole Miss lost the game 38-3 or something like that. And it was when Herb Tyler and Kevin Falk and Eddie Kennison was playing for LSU. The next year, or something like that, Ole Miss was able to get the win. So maybe it was 95. I'm not sure exactly when it was. It might have been 95. But it was such a fun atmosphere to see the game. I saw it in 95. I was there. In, I think, 2004 I was there, and in 2006. Those are my 3 trips to Tiger Stadium. It's just a great place to see a game, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine actually, like I told him how much I love this rivalry. He's actually an LSU fan. And I told him I've been to Baton Rouge. I've kind of been at the tailgate, but I've never actually been in Tiger Stadium. And he said, well, we got to change that. So he sent me some tickets and was like, go have fun, like enjoy it. We can't make it. So here's our tickets. So I'm actually not only going to be at the game, but I am going to be the lone rebel in a sea of LSU fans. So I'm really going to brave it out in this. It'll be quite the experience.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Anyway, the Magnolia Bowls. You've seen this over the years many times. Which one of these games stand out to you, and why does it stand out?
So my absolute favorite, I think, has to be 2015 because I was there, and we were just so on fire. That talent on 2015 team, the defense, I don't know if I ever think, like, I just can't forget us getting Leonard Fournette so frustrated during that game. Oh, he was getting so mad. Like, I remember on the sideline, he was yelling things that they don't show you on TV, though, that just, even if I do, when I rewatch it, and I rewatch this game quite a bit, you don't see how much we were really getting into LSU. They wanted to win that. They thought they were going to win that. And we just really got in their heads, and we just really pissed off Leonard Fournette. And that was a beautiful thing to watch in person.
Yeah, and that was really cool. But the year, that was actually the revenge for the 2014 game. And all week I've talked about how whenever Ole Miss is really good, LSU kind of becomes that there's that voodoo that they have against Ole Miss, that they're just like the bugaboo team that just comes up out of nowhere and gets Ole Miss. And they did it back in the 50s. They did it in 2014. Ole Miss has a chance to go 8-0 for the first time in my lifetime if they win this game. The last time they had that chance was in 2014. If they'd have won that game, they would have gone 8-0. It was a situation that Gary Wunderlich was in range. Bo Wallace kind of lost himself a moment, and it was just weird. Compare that 2014 team to now.
Man, I think we're going to hear about that 2014. I don't know about any of you if you're on Twitter, but I hear about that 2014 team every day. Man, we went in there. We were 7-0, went to Death Valley, and I felt like we had the more talent in the game. And then, of course, Bo Wallace with the interception, we lost 10-7. I think in comparison to somewhat, while Bo Wallace was a little bit more experienced than what we have now, but I think the one thing I've noticed about Jaxson Dart is while he makes some of these same mistakes and he's got things to fix, like you would just see there's a lot of improvement in how he handles the ball and the things he's doing. He's reading things a little bit smarter. He's kind of getting rid of the ball when he needs to. He's making a little bit smarter decisions each game. So I think he's reading well the defenses he's coming against, and he's making those improvements and adjustments. So I think offensive-wise, I think we're going to look pretty well on the ground. Nobody has yet been able to stop both of our run game. We've got a 3 threat there with Dart, who's been on the ground, Evans, and Judkins. So no one's really been able to kind of stop all 3 of them. They might have been able to limit one of them, but they've really yet to be able to get to all 3. Defensive wise, I think that we really are going to have to play smart. We're going to have to really get to Daniels. It's going to really depend on that front line to get to Daniels, kind of break up, get him on the ground, get him a little bit shaky there. Otherwise, we're going to have to work on tackling. But I think in comparison-wise, I do have I think score-wise, I think will be almost a little bit higher, but similar range difference, like as it was in 2014.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the prediction for the game. How do you see this game going? What are you looking for? What are you watching? Give me a score.
So I've been going back and forth on scores, and I think I've finally set on, I think it's going to be pretty close. I'm going to say about 24-21 Ole Miss.
Okay. I went with 27-17, by the way, yesterday in my game breakdown. So it should be pretty good. Should be a lot of fun. Anyway, after this break, we will come back and we'll do all this with Tom Vanderford. Thank you very much, Kara, for coming on the show. And we'll have to get back and make this a regular thing. We'll do our giveaway next week. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right. Take care.
Howdy toddy.
All right. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including iTunes and Spotify. You can say whatever you want to say. Just make sure it's a 5-star review. That'll help other people find us when they search Ole Miss Podcast on the Google machine. If you do that, it would help us out. Remember, 5-star review. Say whatever you want to say. I am here for our weekly segment with Tom Vanderford. Tom will be with us for the postcast after Ole Miss and LSU, and I've been pretty riled up about this game all week. At 6:30, believe it or not, here, whenever we record this in 30 minutes, I'm going on the radio in Louisiana, and I'm prepared to be that cocky Ole Miss guy because I just think that's fun. Anyway, how are you doing, Tom?
Doing great, man. Doing great. LSU hate week. You got to love it.
Yeah, exactly. This is the game, like I told Kara, I told everybody, this is the game that Ole Miss fans most want to win. It's not the game they least want to lose, but it is the game they most want to win. And it's just a weird situation. I talked to Kara about this. This is one of the few times in recent years that Ole Miss is probably going to walk into that stadium with the talent advantage. And that is a bizarre thing for me. But Ole Miss 7-0. They've never been 8-0 in my lifetime. Never been 8-0 in your lifetime.
Nope.
This is a huge, absolutely huge game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I like I said, I'm 56 years old. I've never seen Ole Miss go 8-0 in football. I think that I will get to see that Saturday. A lot of folks might not agree with me. I see Vegas doesn't agree with me, and that's fine. But we have a pick your poison on offense. We've proved that. You want to try to stop the run, we'll throw for 400. You want to try and stop the pass, we'll run for 400. Now, I know that they've got the best athletes we've probably faced so far on defense, but they're not that much better than Auburn. A lot of people may have forget that they beat Auburn 17-14. It was a slugfest. Now, one thing that does concern me is after watching the Florida game, their quarterback looks like he's become more acclimated in their offense. So I just have faith in our staff that they are going to put in the fits for LSU, and we're going to win. I had a friend of mine bring this up, and I haven't went back and looked at the Auburn game close, but he rewatched it, and he told me, he said almost the entire game, Auburn had 7 or 8 in the box, and we ran over them constantly. He said, I think, and this is my buddy, he said, I think Kiffin was bound and determined to prove to LSU and the rest that, yeah, we can run the ball. So I think Kiffin is kind of, and I may be wrong, I may be way off base, but I think he has orchestrated this entire season.
Okay, go on.
I don't think he's shown a lot. I don't think he's shown everything we've got. I think we may see, like you said, we may see some two-back offense. There's no telling what we're going to see. I do believe that we've done just enough to win all year long, and that he may be saving. So I think he's saving some special stuff for Alabama, but he may be saving it for LSU. Who knows? And I may be way off base. But I just have I usually have a horrible feeling about the LSU game, especially if it's in Baton Rouge. I just, I'm like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah. I've got a really good feeling about it.
Yeah,
I
feel relatively good. And when you see people all the time, and this is one thing that I think people need to take a cue from. If you see an LSU person making a prediction about the game, they're obviously going to pick their team to win, but their team is like predicted 31-28, 35-31, something very close that they think they can just get by. Whenever you see Ole Miss people pick this game, Ole Miss by 21 points, Ole Miss by 14 points, always more than one score. And I think that tells you what both fan bases have going into this football game. And that's the way they're going to approach this. Now, at the end, this is all on the players. The players can execute. Ole Miss has the players to win this game. Ole Miss has the players to blow this game out if they wanted to. But
I agree.
They still have to do it. Right. And there's certain things like Jaxson Dart playing in Tiger Stadium. We saw Bo Wallace as a senior lose himself in 2014. It is possible that Jaxson Dart has a similar type throw, or a couple of throws like that. I don't think Jamie Howard is going to happen, but there's a chance that he could get one away. I think LSU is going to work to try and stop the run. And we talked about in the first segment today why Zach Evans and Quinshon Judkins and LSU is going to give everything they can to slow down that run game, but they are not the reason we're going to win this game. Whenever they do that, they're going to have to expose their back end, and those shot plays are going to be there. This could be a big game for Jonathan Mingo or Jordan Watkins or Malik Heath. Those guys have a real chance to make hay in this game, and that is because they are going to be so worried about Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans. And if those guys can run, if Ole Miss puts 220 yards on the board against LSU, this thing's over at halftime.
Oh, yeah, they win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they win the game. Like I said, the only concern that I really have is our defense has got to step up. We've got to see that run defense that we saw for the most part against Kentucky against LSU. Mm-hmm. We don't need to see the Auburn run defense. That one's in the rearview mirror, but that concerns me. Our secondary doesn't concern me. Now listen, their quarterback has some awesome weapons, and he used them against Florida. He finally got to Boutte and the other guys, Neighbors and all of them. But I think our secondary, our secondary is much better and much deeper than Florida's.
Oh, yeah. Florida's not good.
Right. My hope is that we capitalize on stopping the run. And we also, another thing, we got to have and our defense is built for it. We got to have a spy on their quarterback. A lot of times he just, if he doesn't see his reads, he just takes off. He's a fast kid, but we have the type of defense where we can stop those outside runs, for a negligible gain at least. So I just feel real optimistic about tomorrow. I think it's a 2:30 game, so the fans won't be good and liquored up yet, because it's rough playing at LSU at 9. Mm-hmm. But I have a good feeling. I have a good feeling about it.
One thing that I say, and I don't think I've done this key at all. So if you watched all the shows during the week and you get to this last segment on Friday, I will drop this nugget for you as well. A key to this Ole Miss LSU game is LSU Special Teams. Now, you don't want to punt, you don't want to kick off, but you do want to pressure them. A blocked kick, a punt return, a kickoff return. All of that is something to watch for, because if you can take away their special teams, LSU is giving you one out of the three team-wide positions that you can win the game. You only need really two of them to win, and LSU is giving you one. Do not let them into the game on special teams. You need to pressure them. You need to find a way to be creative to wreak a little bit of havoc. And if you're punting the ball, hang time. If you're kicking off, hang time. Make the move. They're worried about muffs. They're thinking about it. Figure out a way to make them stress when punting or kicking off the ball. I
completely agree. Mm-hmm. You know, their punt returner, Beck, if he's the punt returner tomorrow, he kind of reminds me of Corvick Neat back in the day. He muffs more than he catches. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that, you know, we need, of course, to win the turnover battle. I think Jaxson Dart is getting more efficient every game. And, you know, there's something that we haven't seen a lot that I expect to see if LSU starts, you know, trying to rush 4 or 5 people, blitz, whatever. We've got 2 really good running backs, and I haven't seen a lot of screen passes this year. And I think that's something. I mean, you know, we've had swing passes, and I love that pass against Auburn where he did the Tebow and then hit Zach Evans. I love that. I thought that was awesome. But that little stuff like that, little wrinkles, is what I expect to see out of our offense. And I was watching the post game with Chris Partridge, and he was apologizing to the defense for not having them prepared enough, not having a good enough game plan, so on and so forth. And he said, you have my word that we'll be prepared for LSU. And I believe the guy. I really do. I believe the guy.
Yeah, people need to realize against LSU last year, the Ole Miss defense kind of dominated that game.
Mm-hmm. We did.
It's more or less the same offense. Now, Brian Kelly, what they're doing offensively and what LSU did last year with Ed Orgeron, it was kind of the same stuff. The zone running scheme, all of that. So Ole Miss defensively is in a much better position than they were against Tank Bigsby and Auburn. Tank Bigsby for 3 years has owned Ole Miss. He's been a problem no matter what defense we ran, no matter what happened. I think Tank Bigsby has 6 touchdowns against Ole Miss in the last 3 years. So
I believe it.
Yeah, everybody just needs to relax a little bit and realize that there's 3 teams, Kentucky, Auburn, and Arkansas, that have the ability to play murder ball and can make our defense hurt. Those are the 3 teams that can play that style that makes this defense hurt. Alabama's going to play us straight up. Mississippi State doesn't have a tight end. And Texas A&M, they don't really have a quarterback or a back that's over 200 pounds, really. A-Chain's a really good player.
But he's small.
He's not that dude. Arm tackles are going to be able to work on those guys. There's no Tank Bigsby lining up against that team.
Right, exactly.
And other than KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, they can't really do it. So understand that. John Emery and Josh Williams are going to try. Those are powerful runners, but they're not Tank Bigsby. You don't have to worry about seeing that guy. So do not fret about this run defense overall. And besides, Ole Miss gave up 301. Auburn gave up 448. So
exactly,
it's still, even if they decide to play that way, they still have to outscore us. And Auburn never had the ball in the second half with a chance to tie the game.
Exactly.
So
I think we're going to see a lot of that tomorrow. I think so.
All right.
I think that, I can't wait. I think we are going to pull away in the second half. I really do.
All right, give me a score prediction.
Well, it's closer than you would think by the way we were talking, but I'm thinking 31-24 Ole Miss.
All right, I went with 27-17. That's the same thing I told Tara. 27-17 is what I'm thinking is my official prediction for this. Anyway, get more on the SEC by making Locked On SEC your second listen. Every day, host Chris Gordy and the local experts of Locked On take you across the SEC in 30 minutes or less. Make Locked On SEC your second listen. Tom, stick around after we go off the air and I run the end screen. There's a question I want to ask you, but thank you very much for coming on the show today. And, man, I'm just fired up. It's Magnolia Bowl week.
That's right.
All right.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.